Now, moving on. The next question we have here is the code of conduct, and code of ethics are the sources of guidance in public administration. There is a code of conduct already in operation, whereas code of ethics is not yet out in place. Suggest the suitable mode of suitable model for code of ethics to maintain integrity, probity, transparency, and governance. Okay. Now, so basically, in our classes, we discussed both the code of conduct, code of ethics, and in fact, we discussed that in 1997, DARPG, Department of Administrative Reform and Public Grievances, they came out with this action plan for responsible and effective governance. They suggested the code of ethics in 1997, but we discussed that no success. Fine, there is no code of ethics. Even second ARC suggested code of ethics, but it didn't came. We already discussed it. And in fact, we discussed the blueprint. We discussed the blueprint for the code of ethics, which is being asked here. Code of conduct also we discussed here. So, what is code of ethics? Now, how to start it? In introduction, we will define the code of ethics. So, code of ethics, it is a framework which guides the civil servants as how which guides the civil servants the values that they need to possess for effective delivery of goods and services. So it is a guiding framework and will ensures integrity, probity, transparency in governance. Okay. Code of conduct, on other hand, it regulates the behavior. It establishes the set of do's and don'ts. So code of conduct establishes set of do's and don't. Code of ethics establishes the values that needed to be possessed by the civil servants. Now, code of conduct we already have. So we have Central Civil Service Conduct Rule 1964 and All India Service Conduct Rules 1968. So already we have conduct rules. Code of ethics, it has been suggested but not implemented. Now, what can be the blueprint of suitable code of ethics? So, first of all, obviously it is a code of ethics, so it will have some values. So you can give the values that minimum these values need to be there in code of ethics. Now, I will advise you that you not only give the values but also give the references of certain committees and reports which have talked about some specific values. Okay. Now, so we have discussed already, and the same content we'll use here. So we discussed that ARC 10th report. Now, ARC report 4 is on ethics, but ARC 10th report, it has talked about some values. ARC 4th report has also talked about. So these values were mentioned in ARC report 10. Okay, though ARC report 4 is on ethics. So it has talked about certain values: integrity, impartiality, devotion to duty. Draft Public Service Bill 2007, it also talked about some values such as patriotism, allegiance to constitution. Okay, so what I want you that you take 3-4 values. Okay, 3-4 values and use multiple references that these values need to be there, and also explain these particular values. Okay, the next thing what needs to be done, code of ethics need to be given a statutory or constitutional backing. Now, when statutory and constitutional backing is concerned, we could have mentioned the case study of Australia and Poland. Now, Australia and Poland, what they have done, they have imbibed their code of ethics in the constitution. Okay, so code of ethics have been inculcated in the constitution. So by that, they are giving it a backing. So that could be done. And then there has to be mechanism for implementation. In mechanisms, dedicated training program, so that the civil servants not only know the code of ethics, they understand the literal spirit of the code of ethics. Then ethics committee to enforce it, and then public grievance redressal mechanism where public can report the unethical acts by the civil servants. So this can be the entire framework of this particular question. Okay, so that's a suitable model for code of ethics. Okay, so values need to be there, statutory backing needs to be there, and then implementation framework needs to be there. So these 3 things we need to suggest. Moving on. Then the next question 5b, the soul of the new law Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita is justice, equality, and impartiality. based on Indian culture and ethos. Discuss this in the light of major shift from a doctrine of punishment to justice in the present judicial system. Now, this question was expected more to be in GS paper number 2. Now, see this thing, that when you are writing on this particular question, ensure this thing that your answer should look that you are writing for GS4. Your answer should not be like GS2. Okay, so don't put too many of the legal jargons. Try to give it an ethical flair. Try to give an ethical flair. Okay, now, so when we talk about Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, can do in introduction, we can write on that how Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita is rooted in Indian culture system, Indian value system. Now, uh, the earlier penal laws that we have, for example, Indian Penal Code, IPC, okay, CRPC, okay, so particularly IPC, they were rooted in colonial mindset, they were rooted in colonial value system. So Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, it aims to replace the colonial era penal law. Now these colonial era penal laws such as IPC, they focus on retribution. Okay, now in retribution, now when we talk about retribution punishment principle, it is largely based on the principle of an eye for an eye. But today in modern times, rather than retribution, today in modern times, rather than retribution, we focus on reformation. Today we focus on reformation. So earlier law were based on retribution, but today, now we are moving towards restorative. Now we are moving towards a reformative form of justice. Okay, reformative form of justice. It will align the Indian value. It will align the legal system, judicial system with Indian values. Now, also what you can do, you can give the reference of Gandhian belief system. Now, what Gandhiji said? Gandhiji said, hate the sin and not the sinner. Hate the sin and not the sinner. Now, legal system which focuses on just punishment for the sake of punishment, that is based on punishing the sinner, but we want to condemn the sin. And BNS, it takes such kind of a thinking in account. Now, here we'll be giving some specific examples. Okay. Here we'll be giving some specific example. Now, when we talk about BNS, Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, so it reflects a shift in perspective. Now, basically, Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, rather than punishment, it focuses on reform. Okay. Also, it just not aims on punishing the offender, but also focuses on rehabilitation, restitution of victim. Also, when we talk about certain minor crimes, in order to reform the perpetrator of crimes, the punishment such as community service has been added. Second, when we talk about Indian culture, it emphasizes values such as ahimsa, dharma, karuna. And BNS, what it focuses upon? It focuses on these values that are to be there in the legal system. Okay, so it talks about that the legal system needs to be neutral, without biases of color, class, caste, and gender. So new value systems are being imparted. Then, when we talk about justice, justice is always celebrated not for the result but for the process. In this context, mob lynchings, mob violence have been included elaborately to send a clear message that such things are not instant justice, but they are heinous offense. And also, adultery has been removed, which sends a message of gender equality. Now you see what we are doing. We are making this particular answer more normative, more value based. Question says that BNS is rooted in Indian culture and ethos. Fine, discuss this in the light of major shift from punishment to the justice. So we are not only focusing on punishment. Through this particular law, we are focusing on bringing a social reform at all dimensions. Examples you can give. The next question we have here, in Indian culture and value system, an equal opportunity has been provided irrespective of gender identity. The number of women in public service has been steadily increasing over the years. Examine the gender specific challenges faced by the female public servants and suggest suitable measures to increase their efficiency in discharging their duty and maintaining high standards of probity. Now, women in public services, civil services, this kind of a theme has been asked multiple number of times.